Welcome to 2 Cents Short of a Dollar, the show where we give our 2 cents and keep it 100. We're your hosts. That's Motiz, and I'm Rue. And it's fight week. It's finally here. Saul Canelo Alvarez versus Terrence Bud Crawford. Let's waste no more time. Jump straight into it. Tell me who wins and why.
I think it's obvious. It's Canelo. Canelo Payday Alvarez. I feel like Canelo wins this just based off the fact of the weight. I think the weight is going to play more of a factor than people realize. There's just too many variables on Terrence Crawford's side that I got to deal with versus Canelo. Canelo has been at the weight for quite some time. So there's too many unknowns. Yeah, Crawford is a phenomenal fighter. Great IQ, great skill, just great instincts. However,
Counterpunching.
great counterpunching ability. However, he's moving up in 2 weight classes, so we need to see how he acclimates in that fight. So he's going to adjust, meaning, how's his cardio with the added weight, right? His speed with the added weight, right? He also has to get adjusted with timing. The fighters at that weight class, they're not as fast compared to the welterweight division, but nevertheless, they're cracking, they're hitting as hard. So he also has to bear the brunt of those punches coming from Canelo, and Canelo is just not any fighter. He's also just as intelligent. He's more experienced, so the factor that would have helped Crawford, which is the physicals, kind of leans more to Canelo, only because Canelo's just been at that weight class for just so much longer. You know what I mean? And that's barring any injuries from both sides. So that's essentially it as to why I'm just going with Canelo. I just think it's just the safer option at this point, So
Gotcha. And are you willing to go out on a limb and say he may stop Crawford, or do you see this one going the distance?
I can see him dropping Crawford, but I don't know if he stops Crawford, if I'm being honest with you. I wouldn't be surprised at all, but I don't think he stops Crawford. I think he wins by decision.
Yeah. I think what I'm looking for in this fight is how quickly Crawford goes southpaw. You know my theory: when Crawford feels like he's in trouble or there's a certain level of opposition, he goes to southpaw where he's more naturally comfortable. So how quickly is he going to go southpaw, and how much is that Jaron Ennis sparring going to pay dividends here? You know what I mean? Canelo brought Jaron Ennis into camp for that reason, the switch hitting, even though I think these days in Terrence Crawford, he's not switch hitting as much as when he goes southpaw, he's not coming back. You know what I mean? So the major factor in this fight to me, I think, is can Bud hurt Canelo or get Canelo's respect? Because one thing about Bud, phenomenal fighter, but he's had, maybe with the exception to that Errol Spence fight, he's had several fights where there's been some close moments, there's been some back and forth, but some way, somehow he always lands that shot that kind of hurts you and takes over the fight. I'm thinking of like the Kell Brook fight, the Sean Porter fight. Those were close fights until he kind of landed that thing that hurt you. You know what I mean? So Canelo, I expect Canelo to go downhill on Crawford, it to be like a snowball effect. So can Crawford hit him with something that's gonna hurt him and make him say, okay, I can't walk him down like I'm Michael Myers. You know what I mean? So does Crawford have that in his repertoire? Because Canelo's been proven to have a granite chin.
Yeah, even moving up to fight the likes of Bivol, and we see what Bivol did against Arthur, who was a vicious puncher.
Yeah.
And he fought him twice, which speaks a lot to Bivol. So, I see it's very unlikely that Crawford would stop or even hurt Canelo. If he does that, all praise to Crawford, but I don't see that happening. And then can Crawford throw as many punches as required to essentially win on the scorecards for 12 rounds, moving up 2 weight classes, right?
Yeah.
Can he stay busy and throw punches in bunches, which we haven't seen from him in quite some time? We may have seen it a little bit in the Madrimal fight, right? In the late rounds when he's throwing combinations, but that was only for like 2 rounds, So,
yeah. So, and I see people talking about the Floyd Mayweather fight, but Terrence fights nothing like Floyd Mayweather. So this fight isn't going to look like that. You know what I mean? So for me, I think the early rounds, we could probably see them trade a couple rounds. Feel out round one, I'm probably going to give to Canelo, right? I think he's going to walk him down. I think just have a little bit more activity. So I can see round one going to Canelo. In the first 4 rounds, I could see maybe some of Bud's counterpunching, stealing him, a round or two. So, but after that, I kind of expect the pressure to start mounting. the ring to start feeling smaller. I think Terrence is going to be landing some good shots. Canelo's going to roll some of them, but I think what Terrence is going to see is they're not hurting him. And the more Canelo feels like you can't hurt me, the more he's just going to walk you down and stalk you. And I feel like eventually we're going to see Crawford on his bike, and I always say this to you: it's not intentional. A lot of these fighters don't mean to run to that extent, but you start feeling like, yo, there's nowhere to go. This guy's just in my face the whole time. Like, what can I do? So I see probably after like round 4 or 5, I kind of see the snowball effect and Canelo just coming downhill, downhill, downhill. And I don't really see a way for Crawford to stop it. I think the movement. So here's the thing about Bud. Bud is like, yo, if I take one, I'm gonna try to give you one. If you hit him hard enough, he wants to get that get back. I don't know if he's gonna do that this fight. I think it's instinctual for him, but I think we're gonna see him on his bike a lot. So it's hard for me to say Canelo stoppage, because I think Bud's gonna start moving. I'm gonna go ahead and say Canelo wins by UD.
Yeah, yeah. I guess we both got him winning by unanimous decision. Yeah, it's. I mean, Canelo is just. I don't know. I think it's pretty obvious that Canelo's the safe bet for this fight.
Mm.
But if Crawford was to win this, man, he's on my Mount Rushmore easily if he wins this fight. Easily.
Yeah. Well, here's another factor too. Coming into the fight, there's rumors going around about a shoulder injury for Crawford. So allegedly, Terrence has a shoulder injury. One thing about Canelo, he's gonna hit you everywhere.
Yeah.
And hit you in the arms, hit you in the shoulder, all that. So how much can Terrence stand up to that kind of punishment at that weight? Yes, he's moving up 2 weight classes, but he only had one fight at 154. So it's not like he was there for long either. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And that fight was relatively close. He won the fight, but it wasn't like he blew Madrimov out the water.
And what was different in that fight than his other fights? He couldn't hurt Madrimov. Madrimov was taking the punches a lot better than people were at 47.
Yeah, better than Terrence, better than Errol, better than a lot of fighters. Yeah, sometimes
everybody
all it takes
took
is one weight class.
Better than Errol, though.
Yeah, I don't know what was happening that, but and I'm curious to see how much stronger Crawford is going to be in the fight. That would help in terms of I know he has a wrestling background, but I don't know, man. Canelo's been in the cave with behemoths, so.
Yeah, I mean, Crawford does have the reach advantage. So if he does try to outbox him, but the thing is, Canelo, there's not as much head movement at this point in time of his career. He's never been very fleet-footed, but that high guard, he has a good high guard. He'll get there. And I think what people don't give him enough credit for is his timing and his precision, right? You see Canelo drops guys. You wouldn't call him the fastest guy, but just the timing and the precision to land and drop guys, you know what I mean? So I think, people are talking about Bud's skills, rightfully so, but Canelo's a skill fighter in himself. He's not like just a brute.
Yeah, I think, Canelo dropped like his last 4 opponents. So, yeah. That's true.
So, let's say Canelo wins this fight. What do you expect from him next? Do you think kind of hangs it up, or do you think he continues to campaign at 68? I mean, maybe he goes back after that Bivol fight.
I could see him campaigning at 168. Turki Al-Sheikh may insert himself to try to get. He's even mentioned it that he's going to try to get Hamza to fight Canelo. I don't know how realistic that is. Canelo is gonna, make his decisions. Decide if he wants to take that fight, or he'll take another fight before he decides to set his sights on Bivol or anyone else. That's my opinion.
I forgot about the Hamza fight. That is what they're going to try to push. And I think it's going to be too much money for him to turn down. But let's say Crawford wins this fight. Do you see him continuing to campaign at this weight, or do you think he's going to move back down to 54?
I think he's going to move back down.
Some interesting things happen. If this is, if he doesn't retire, there's some interesting things happening at 54. We can transition into that next. But I could see him going back down to 54 if he conquers this, right? Because there's nothing left to prove. 54 would just be for more paydays at this point.
I agree.